Good morning, everybody. I'm once again talking about A Love Worth Giving by Max Lucado. Let me tell you something. You can have a situation in which a guy, he gets into some hard times, he borrows money from you. Okay, say he borrows $500 or something. And then all of a sudden he gets into some harder times. Now he's eventually going to get out of these times, you know that. But he's in these tremendous hard times and he can't get that money back to you right away. There's no reason to kill the friendship. You try to help him get back on his feet. Eventually he does, eventually he pays you back. But sometimes he can't get the money back to you right away. The first thing you have to remember about letting people borrow money from you is make sure that when somebody is borrowing money off of you, that you're not going to go into a deep well of debt of your own. Okay, if you're going to go into a deep well of debt trying to bail this guy out, I wouldn't give him the money. I'd say, look, I'm going to be just as bad a shape as you if I give you this money. I feel bad for you, but there's nothing I can do about it. That way you don't destroy a friendship. Because let me tell you something, you're giving money to somebody that's going to now throw you into big debt, you're going to have a skiff. You know, you're going to have a scuttle there. You're going to say, man, I'm in just as bad a shape as you are. I need that money back. And then he's like, please be patient, and then you're not patient, and then the friendship's ruined. So it's always best that if you're going to loan somebody some money, that you're not going to have it for yourself. God doesn't want you in a situation where you're loaning out money that you don't really have of your own. That's not a good thing. All right. So that's something to keep in mind. Don't give people things that you're going to have for yourself. I wouldn't give somebody my computer, even if they needed one, considering the fact that I'm still going to need my computer for my own purposes. I wouldn't do that. So that's something to do. Now, let me try to think here. Then the issue of tithing comes up. Okay, here's how this one works. All right, you're able to give a tithe, you give it, and you say, well, I don't know that I really want to give it to that particular church because I don't know if they're going to spend it properly. Here's how the Bible answers that. Before you put the offering in the offering plate, before you even go to that church, you pray over that money right there in your house. Okay? And you say, Lord, I'm giving this to you to benefit your community. All right? However, I also know that church may not be spending that money correctly. So I want you, Lord, to look into it. And God's going to then go ahead and look into it. He's going to say, okay, this is my money. God, when you pay the tithe and you dedicate it to the Lord's saying, that's my money. So what he does is he watches how that money is being spent. And if God thinks that money is being spent improperly, he will put a curse on that church. And that church will be financially cursed until they either spend their money properly or until their doors are closed. That's the way that works. So don't be afraid to give it to X and Y church. Because you know that once you pray over that money and you say, Lord, you're in charge of it, if you think it's being done improperly, you deal with it. Because God will deal with it. God will deal with it. As soon as that money is his, he'll say, okay, these guys don't spend it right, I'll put a curse on them. So again, like I said, when you're giving money to a church, don't worry about what the church is doing with it, because God is then watching that money. And if he sees it as being improperly spent, God will deal with it, because that's his money. And he's not going to let it be spent improperly. Trust me on that. All right? So if you're standing there and week after week you give money to this church and you're sitting there going, I don't know if they're spending it right or not, don't worry about that part, because God's taking a look at that. Then if you start seeing that the church is starting to collapse, and here you are giving all this money and this church is still going down, you may want to leave that church, and the church will just simply go down. Okay? So, like I said, don't worry about the fact that you're giving money to a church that may not be spending the money right. Because if they're not spending the money right, God will take them down. That's the way that works. So, like I said, if you're worried that this church that you're giving all this money to is not spending it properly, pray over it and let God handle where the money goes. Okay? And if God doesn't believe the money's going the right place, He'll deal with it. It's not your job, it's His job. God can manage His own money. You give money to God, God will manage it. And He will also then send you a special blessing if they screw it up. Isn't that nice? He'll send you a special blessing because you were aware of the situation, but because you went ahead and gave it to Him, God will send you the blessing and them the curse. Yeah, God can curse people. Trust me. Very good at that. So, if you don't believe me, just check out the entire Old Testament. You can see all the curses that God delivered to all these people. So He's very good at cursing people if He feels it's necessary. So like I said, don't hesitate to give tithes to a church. Just make sure that you pray over it in your house before you take it to the offering plate, and let God know that there may be a problem. If God says, hey, there's a problem, He'll deal with it. Let God deal with the problem, not you. Alright? If there's a problem with mismanaged money, God will deal with it Himself. He's good at that. So don't be afraid to give tithes to a church. Just make sure you pray over it before you go to the church, and don't tell anybody this. Don't make an issue out of it. God will deal with things in His own way, in His own time. Alright? Hopefully you didn't get the wrong message out of that. If you have any questions about it, just leave a comment down here below. That's what I'm trying to tell you, people, is just continue giving your tithing. If there's a problem with mismanaged money, God will deal with it Himself, and He'll give you a special blessing just because you're aware of it. Okay? You are not only aware of it, but you let God handle it. That's the special blessing. He'll say, okay, because you became aware of it and you let me handle it instead of you, I give you this blessing. And I give them the curse. Also remember, let's say that you're giving money to somebody, you can afford to do it, and they start mismanaging it. God says, don't worry about it. You pray over it, and if they mismanage it, I'll bless you and curse them. They'll live under a financial curse while you prosper. That's the way God handles it. I wish somebody had taught me that a long time ago, because it would have been better for me. I ended up with a lot of resentment because of it. But one thing I will tell you is that don't keep pouring your money down an empty hole. If you see the things are really getting to be mismanaged, now I'm not talking about churches, I'm talking about just a friend. If you have a friend and he's just constantly taking your money and just mismanaging it, cut it off. If you can't afford to do that anymore, just cut it off and say, hey, I can't afford to do this. And don't make a big deal about it. Don't be mean about it. Just say, look, simply, financially, I can't afford to continue giving you this kind of money. I'm sorry. End of story. He'll understand. These are tough economic times. If he doesn't understand, that's his problem. So, anyway, when it comes to spouses, that's a different story. We will cover that in a later video. Don't do that with a spouse. Just wait until I give you a better answer from them. Alright? I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.